Welcome to the next episode of the Sensible Mama podcast. I'm super excited. Today we have a doula with us. Her name is Mannah. Would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, so my name's Mannah. I'm a doula. I am based in Ball Ground, Georgia. I've been a doula for almost a year, so still kind of new to the field of birth work, but super passionate. Love to help moms have the birth of their dreams and feel empowered and informed and autonomous and all those wonderful things. So yeah, happy to be here.
That's amazing. So yeah, we were talking just a little bit ago about how you got into this. Would you share with us your birth story and what made you turn to a more natural approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got pregnant with my first baby in the middle of COVID. So he was born February 2021. So I was pregnant like right after kind of everything went crazy in 2020. I would not have called myself any form of the word like crunchy or anything like that. I could not have imagined giving birth at home. Like, I don't even know if I was really aware that that was a thing that people did. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just, I got pregnant. I called the doctor because that's what you're supposed to do. I went to the OB, did all my prenatal care with them. Kind of didn't really have a lot of questions. I just kind of trusted the system, thought, they'll tell me whatever I need to know and take care of me and it'll be fine. There were a couple things throughout my prenatal care that sort of rubbed me the wrong way at certain points. That I know the one that I mentioned to you a bit ago was just there was an appointment I went into, and it was like a nurse practitioner that I saw, so not even a doctor or midwife. And I went in, and she's like, "All right, well, go ahead and pull your pants down." And I was like, what? What do you mean? And she said, "Yeah, you have your ROGAM today." And I was like, "My what?" Like, I asked her to repeat it because I couldn't even tell like what word she was saying. It was that foreign to me. Like, I just was like, I literally have no idea what you're even talking about. And she said, "Your ROGAM, it's today. Like, you have to get it." And I said, "Well, I don't know what that is. Like, I don't understand. Can you, tell me like why I need it? What does it do?" She told me it was a shot, and I mean, basically just didn't give me any more information than that. She's like, it's required. Like, you have to get it because of your blood. And this is the first I had heard anything.
Serious. Like, what's wrong with my blood?
I know, that's what I was thinking. So, of course I'm like, oh, well, okay, I guess I better do it. I mean, she actually told me I couldn't leave without it. Which knowing everything I know now, if I could go back to that moment, like, that should have been my major red flag, like, get out of there. This is not where you need to be. But I just assumed that that was true. I was like, well, I guess I have to do it. I'm not allowed to leave unless I do it. So I did it. I pulled my pants down. I mean, like, it sounds so crass, but that is what she said at first. Like, just pull your pants down. Got the ROGAM. So what it is, actually, for anyone listening, it's for moms who have an Rh negative blood type. So, if you think of blood types, you have like A positive or A negative, B positive, B negative. So all those negative ones, what that means is if your blood has something called Rh or rhesus. And if you, as the pregnant mom, have a negative blood type and your partner has a positive blood type, there's a chance that your baby has a positive blood type. Even that, usually in and of itself, no complications. Right. But if for whatever reason your blood and your baby's blood mixed at some point in utero, it can cause the mom to develop antibodies to the baby's blood type. Usually it doesn't cause any problems for that immediate pregnancy, but it can cause issues with pregnancies down the line. But they didn't tell me any of that in the moment. The biggest irony with it is I actually chose to get that injection in my subsequent pregnancies because I learned about it and I understood it. So it wasn't that the thing itself is what I had a problem with, but I was so like, I don't know, I felt so cornered. And uncomfortable and like scared, and I don't know. It was a very strange experience for me. So that was kind of the beginning of me starting to like really question what was going on. I went home that day and like read a whole bunch of stuff about Rogam. And so what the shot is it's an injection to help your body to like recognize the positive blood type as like not being harmful, I guess.
Right.
That's a very layman's way of putting it. I'm sure.
I think that's fine. Yeah. If people need more information, Google will
Go look it up. Yeah.
take you down that rabbit hole.
Yes. But yeah, I thought that was weird. I did the glucose screening too, and I thought it was just so bizarre that in general, you're supposed to like watch your sugar intake, and then you go in on this day and you're supposed to like down 100 grams of sugar, or 50, I can't remember, 100 grams of sugar.
Did you end up doing it?
Do what?
Did you end up doing it?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did the 1 hour test, and it was literally the worst day of my pregnancy. Like I felt like I was hit by a truck.
It's
like
disgusting.
I like didn't have the energy to move my mouth to talk. I was so beat. It was like, anyway, but to just sort of complement what you're saying, for me, it was a very similar experience with the glucose, because they were like, well, gestational diabetes. And I was like, that sounds scary. What is it? They're like, it's just a thing. And I'm like, no, educate me. Like, I thrive on knowledge. I love to just like gobble up information, and then I can make a decision. Because the funny thing is, like you said, like it's not what was being done, it was how it was presented, or not presented, in a sense, where I was like, if I knew what gestational diabetes actually was and how it worked, then I probably would have done the finger pricks, and I probably would have gotten very excited, been very interested, like, how does my body react to different foods? Because now that sounds great. Like, I'd be all for testing my blood for sugar, but at the time they're like, well, either you do it or we fire you as a patient. And I was like, what?
Fire me as a patient. Oh,
first of all, not a patient. I'm not sick. I'm pregnant. Second of all, you're fired. You work for me. You're fired.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And then, I mean, to follow the logic through, it's not just gestational diabetes. It's like, okay, what happens if you test positive in that screening? What happens if you test negative? Okay, if you test positive, then they're going to want to do another test that's even bigger and longer.
That was the fight.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, you test positive for that, then what happens? Usually it's like, well, you just need to monitor your sugar intake.
Or they threatened me that because I was going to have a big baby, because I was borderline whatever, that they were going to induce me early. And I was like, explain. And they were like, that's just what we do. We're going to induce you at 39 weeks. And I'm like, that sounds stupid.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Which even then you should still have a choice. Like, even if you test positive for gestational diabetes, it's still your choice if you want to get induced or when, anyway. So yeah, that was the beginning of me feeling very uncomfortable, and like it at that point, I wouldn't say it made me very super doubtful of the medical professionals as much as like unsure of myself. Like, I felt like, I don't know what this is. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I in a weird way, like entering motherhood, I was like, man, am I ready for this? Like, I don't even know what this thing is. Like, I don't know how to make these decisions. And I felt like everybody was treating me like, you should have already known this or something. Like, that was kind of how I interpreted it at that time, is they just assumed that I should know what I needed to do and that I should just do it. Yeah, there was that. There was the glucose screening. And I also felt horrible that whole day. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything else in the prenatals other than just the prenatals themselves being like 5 minutes long, and no relationship developed at all.
But the thing, I don't know about you, but when I was with a traditional OB, I didn't know I didn't know there was an alternative. I would come in, they would check my blood pressure, I'd pee in the cup, and then they're like, you got any questions? Nope. Okay. Cool. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know what questions I'm supposed to have,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be learning. Yeah.
Right.
It's so hard. Yeah, I didn't know there was any alternative either. I remember feeling like I needed to hurry, like I was wasting their time
Hmm.
in some of my appointments, like not walking fast enough to the, oh, not waddling fast enough. um, yeah. So when I went into labor, I was actually at my mom's house and in total denial that I was in labor. I was only 39 weeks and like 1 day. And for whatever reason, I had not at all considered the possibility that the baby would come early. Like, I was like, it's not time yet. This isn't labor. I'm definitely not in labor because it's not time yet. But whenever I started like taking my clothes off, my mom was like, I think you should call the hospital. So I was in fact in labor. Um, I I got to the hospital, went through triage. Because it was COVID, they wouldn't let my husband go through triage with me. So got separated from him for, it was probably only 30 minutes or something, but it felt like forever. And
I'm sorry. When you're in
was,
the thick of labor, time is not normal.
yeah. Because I remember like I felt okay when I was with my mom. Like I was scared and like it was really intense, but I wasn't like panicking or in despair or anything like that. Like I was excited when I was with her. And then when I was with my husband, I still again like I felt okay, Like it was some crazy stuff going on, certainly for a first time mom, but being apart from both of them and trying to go through triage and they're telling me I have to get a cervical check to be admitted and nobody's with me and they're making me change into the hospital gown and they're asking me all these questions because apparently I didn't register correctly, which I guess is my fault. But in the moment, I was like, "What? I don't know. I don't know what you're asking me." And that was really hard. Like to be by myself facing all of that. That's I feel like when I started to really kind of freak out and panic. And then of course everything got felt more intense. Like the contractions felt more intense because of the fear that I was feeling.
Mhm.
Obviously, I was admitted at some point. My husband was reunited with me. I want to say I was like 6 centimeters dilated in triage. So I was pretty happy about that because one of my big fears was going to the hospital too early and then being sent home.
As so many people tell me those, like I was dreading that too. My best friend was like, don't let it happen. It's so discouraging. And I was like
Yeah.
preparing myself, like, oh, don't let me be that person. It's such
Mm-hmm.
a strange thing.
Yeah. I was so scared that because of what it would mean, I was thinking if I go, if I think it's so intense, then I'm so far along, and then I go and they say I'm not, like how much worse can it get?
Right.
So that was kind of where my brain was at. I was like, oh, I hope that I'm not like just a huge baby or something. Which isn't to say that anybody is a baby who goes to
Goodness,
the
all these
hospital who's
thoughts, like it's so, and of course hindsight is 2020, right? Like you look back and you're like, that was so silly. But for a first time mom,
mm-hmm,
it's an intense moment. And
mm-hmm,
like fear and the doubt and the stress, like the second you start learning about birth and you really start to educate, you understand why people get into the situations they get into, because all of these things being thrown, like all of those things, the stress, the fear, the uncertainty, the self-doubt, all of them just act as blocks to the natural birthing
yes,
process. And like, if only the hospital, like I wouldn't be doing this if hospitals took into account that that was such a major factor.
that
And
stuff
not to say
really
that there
matters.
are
Yeah,
probably midwives and labor and delivery nurses that do and probably do a wonderful job, but like as a generality, like
yeah.
overall,
By and
it's
large, the system is not conducive to those labor hormones.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was pregnant for the first time and giving birth for the first time, I had no idea what a huge role hormones play in labor.
Mhm.
There's a hormone called oxytocin, you probably know. But for anyone listening who doesn't know, oxytocin is the love hormone. So it's the hormone of affection and intimacy and safety and love, and just anytime that you're just feeling really, lovey-dovey and safe and cozy and whatever, that's oxytocin at work. And it is also the hormone that stimulates your contractions. So it's literally the hormone that like makes your labor move forward. Lots of things that typically happen in a hospital birth setting are very, very not conducive to that hormone. And I think they don't prioritize it because in a medically managed setting, they're all thinking, well, we can just use XYZ, whatever other methods to make your labor move faster or move forward or whatever, things like Pitocin, Cytotec, whatever. But those things have a completely different physiological effect than your natural labor hormones. So yeah, you can hear in my birth story like all the things that were happening that were kind of impeding my ability to cope. Oxytocin also releases endorphins that literally help your body to cope with pain. So
Right.
if you're not getting that oxytocin love hormone, you're also literally not going to be able to cope with your contractions as well. So yeah, really important stuff.
We could probably, and maybe we should, like, we'll wait a month or two, but then I should probably have you back on and we'll just do an entire episode on the subject of oxytocin. I like geeked out on the subject. I wrote a whole blog post. I'll link it in the description so people can kind of read a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
But it's truly, it's miraculous as far as I'm concerned, to the degree that the birth assistant at my first home birth, she's also a doula. She has it tattooed on her wrist right here, the molecular structure.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so she was like holding my hands at one point, and I'm looking at this, and she had told me what it was like early on in the labor, and I was like, yes, this is.
Oh, that's cool. So then it's also like a visual reminder while
It
you're
was
in
really
labor.
cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah, oxytocin. Oh, that's really cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's super, super important. I think as a first time pregnant mom, I thought of birth as very mechanical. Like you think of like dilation and if you get a little bit more educated, you learn about effacement. So your cervix has to open, that's dilating, but also has to efface, which is like thinning out. So I vaguely knew about those things. Like I knew the baby had to move down. I had heard people talk about things you could do to open your pelvis more. But those are all kind of mechanical things. I just did not know anything about the hormones and how like the way that you feel in your own head, like in your emotions, actually physiologically impacts how the birth goes and how smooth things go. So yeah, the more you know. I learned a lot about that afterward, and used it for my other two births. But yeah, so I was in labor. I was kind of freaking out. I started to like kind of hyperventilate at some point, and there was a nurse tech who she had to only be in my room for like 5 minutes, but while she was in there, she got real close, like just right eye to eye, and looked at me and she's like, breathe with me. And she just kind of stood there for a couple minutes and just breathed really deep and slow with me. And she's like, you can do this. And I will never forget her, because after that birth was over, which I'm jumping all over in this story. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
I thought about her because I'm like, man, when she was doing that, I felt like I could do it. Like I felt okay. Like the contractions weren't that intense. I mean, like they were still intense, but manageable, And then when she left, it was like, another nurse came in and they're like, there's nothing wrong with getting the epidural. Like, are you sure? You seem like you need it. Just kind of, they just kept going. I had gone in saying I would like to try to go without the epidural, but I'm open to it, which I wish I would have just said, don't talk to me about the epidural.
Right.
I feel like indicating that I was open to it just opened the door for a perpetual onslaught of people asking me if I was ready for it.
Wow.
So yeah, and like I interpreted that in the moment as they must not think I'm coping well. Like they must not think I'm doing a very good job because they just keep asking me if I want the epidural. So eventually got the epidural. In the beginning, I had no regrets about the epidural. Like it was a nice relief. I got to rest for a little bit. I felt a lot more um, relaxed. Obviously, I did
Sure.
have a hot spot in my epidural, so that was like I didn't know that it was
I'm sorry.
possible.
What was that?
A hot spot.
What
So
does that mean?
I had just this one area on my belly that I could still feel everything.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know that was possible
I
until
didn't know that was a thing.
it happened to me. Yeah. I now know that that's actually more common than people might realize that epidurals, first of all, they can fail entirely where they just don't work at all. I have also known people to have an epidural that only worked on one side and they still felt everything on the other side.
Hmm.
And then in my case, I just had like one partial spot on my belly that I could still feel everything. So the anesthesiologist like kept coming back to try to fix it. I think eventually I did get it to where I felt pretty comfortable. But even when it was partial, it was still a big relief. Like I was able to
Sure.
rest and get some sleep. So all of that was fine. Labored through the night with the epidural. All night long, nurses are coming in and telling me that everything looks great, the baby looks great, heart rate's awesome. I got checked a couple more times. They're telling me that I'm progressing super well and everything looks great. And the OB got there like 7 or 8 in the morning. I can't remember what time. Shift change. OB
Mhm.
comes. From my perspective, he got there, poked his head in the door, looked at the screen, and he's like, yeah, let's go ahead and break her water and get started on some Pitocin. I mean, just like that nonchalant. This is through the fog of labor, and like this is a few years ago now, so I don't know. Maybe my memory's bad, but I've gone over this a lot in my head since then, and that is how nonchalant it felt. There was no discussion about it. I didn't know the first thing about Pitocin. I didn't know the risks with having your water broken artificially. Um, didn't know anything about it. I didn't know I could ask questions in that moment. Like I didn't know that it was up to me to say like, wait, I don't want to do that,
Hmm.
or why I might not want to do that. I just didn't know anything. I went in totally blind. So yeah, got my water broken. They started running Pitocin. From there, everything is really kind of a big blur. I believe I reached 10 centimeters very shortly after that. And as soon as I was 10 centimeters, they're like, all right, time to push. They bring the doctor back in. They put on this giant spotlight of like the brightest light you've ever seen, just right front and center
That
on
must be
my
so
coochie.
awkward.
Yeah. I was, yeah, it was really unlike anything I've ever experienced. They asked if I wanted to use the mirror, and I said yes, actually. So I could see a little bit of what was happening, which basically involved me watching myself poop a little bit over and over and over again. That might be TMI. I'm sure there's some listeners who don't want to hear that.
No,
But
it's okay. Poop talk is allowed on this
it
podcast.
is true.
It
And
somehow goes there more often than not.
I just wasn't prepared for that either. And so that was a really weird experience. And so I mean, it was like I'm just watching it happen. It was like a little bit, and then they'd wipe it. And then the next contraction was a little bit, and then they wipe it. So that was really bizarre.
It's super
Um,
weird.
just I always mention that because I'm like, somebody will be glad that they heard that that was a possibility before it happened.
Yeah. So yeah, even at home, I have both of
Yes.
my boys at home. I opted. My midwife asked me a couple of times. She's like, "Would you like?" Well, not with the second one, with the first one. She's like, "Do you want a mirror?" And I'm like, "I actually don't want to see what's going on down there because
Mm.
it doesn't feel great and it probably doesn't look great and I don't think it's gonna give me any good warm fuzzy feelings. So I'm just gonna say no, thank
Mm.
you." She's like, "Do you want to feel?" And I'm like, "I can feel plenty enough
Hmm.
without my hands. Thank you."
I
Although
think,
some people love it and some people swear by it. So like you do you if it works for you, absolutely. For
yeah.
me, it was like, nah, I'm good.
I feel like if I would have had it more towards the very end, like
Mm,
when my baby was actually crowning, I think it could have helped me control my pushing a little bit.
okay.
But I pushed for about 2 hours and 45 minutes, And you can imagine, like, the vast majority of that time, I'm not seeing ahead. Like, I couldn't see anything. So it ended up being mostly just discouraging.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't see baby. All I could see was poop. And the doctor started doing like perineal massage. So basically using his fingers to like stretch out my vagina.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching that happen. Again, no discussion happened about that. Very weird to just look down and see it happening. Um, didn't love that.
Yeah.
um, I this part of my birth, like pushing in general, I look back and I'm like, okay, the water breaking the Pitocin, like that was weird without a discussion. But even that wasn't like the most emotionally difficult part. But when I was pushing, I remember having this like just deep gut instinct that I was not ready to push.
Mm.
I was not the kind of person at that point to, lean into my intuition or like pay a lot of attention to my own gut feelings, because I'm there to trust the doctors, like they're the ones who understand birth and know how everything works. But even in that state, I had this feeling like I'm not supposed to be pushing yet, and I couldn't verbalize it. Like I tried to say it, and it was like my mouth wasn't saying it. I don't know if that's the drugs or just where I was at in labor, or just being so exhausted. But that was the moment that for weeks and weeks afterward, I would think back on and just like cry, because I just couldn't advocate for myself. Um, and it was hard for my husband too, because I'm talking about it afterwards, and he's like, I just didn't know. Like
Right.
they told me
Right.
to grab your leg.
Well,
And
it was his first time too.
yeah,
Like people are like, well, your husband should advocate for you. And I'm like, yes,
but
100%.
neither one of us knew.
But like my husband was the most amazing birth partner I could have asked for. And there were so many things because he was going through it for the first time, just like I was. I had done a lot of research and I taught him what I could. And he did the birth class with me. So it's not like he didn't know anything. But if you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know, so
Yeah.
like you anyway, I'll let you close out and sell the idea of a doula at the end, but having somebody like a doula there for you who can even just remind you like you
Mhm.
have a choice,
Mhm.
or ask you straight up, what is your gut telling you? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure you do that for your clients, like
Well,
what
one thing's for sure, I ask everybody, do you feel like you're ready to push?
right.
It's such a basic question, but if the doctor's not asking you, which hopefully they would, if you're birthing in a hospital, hopefully your provider would just ask you first, because it's a really simple question. But yeah, that's an easy one for me to be like, you know, do you feel like you're ready to push?
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, if I had had someone there to do that for me, I think a lot of things would have been different. Or somebody to be like, you've been pushing on your back with us holding your legs back for an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours or two and a half. Like at no point during that whole agonizing stretch of time did anyone say, maybe we should like have you push on your side for a little while.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't know that was an option. So
Right.
yeah, I just laid there. Um, I remember towards the end feeling like I just wanted a C-section. Like I was like, I cannot do this anymore. And they must have known I was getting close. I'm actually grateful, like in some ways, that they didn't let me just go do a C-section. But I remember trying to say like I'm done. Like I cannot do this anymore. I was so tired. Um, and they're literally like, there's a nurse up by my head pushing my back up, like physically moving my body, and then there's two people down here holding my legs back, and it literally felt like I had no bodily autonomy. Like it was just all happening to me, if that makes sense.
Of
um,
course. Yeah.
I didn't mean for this to become like trauma dumping.
No,
But it is what happened.
this is good. Like honestly, somebody watching this is
Mhm.
currently pregnant and either planning for a home birth or planning for a hospital birth. Either which option is totally fine, but like
Mhm.
just to know that you are still in control
Yeah.
and you are running the show, regardless of what anybody else thinks or does or feels. And you may get providers that are incredible and amazing. Like,
Mhm.
it happens, and it's not like it never happens. But
Yeah.
it's a luck of the draw, and you don't know who is going to be there. If you go to the hospital, very rarely do you get to pick who the provider is that's going to be working with you. And
Mhm.
so it's good to hear these things so that like, hey, you know what, in my gut, this doesn't feel right. And then you can say that, or you can tell your husband, like, if I look uncertain, your job is to ask me, what are you feeling right now? Or what are you thinking? Or what would you like to do? Or maybe hire a doula if you don't think that you or your husband could do that. Like, consider hiring a doula who's been there and who is educated in all these various things. Like, this is valuable. Like, secondhand knowledge is very valid knowledge,
Mhm.
and you can learn from, not to say that, yeah, I was going to say you can learn from other people's mistakes. It wasn't a mistake on your part. It was just a lack of education, or a lack of knowledge, or a lack of
Yeah.
preparation, or whatever combination of those things. But, secondhand, maybe we can help somebody not have a negative experience
Yeah.
because they went in knowing something
Yes.
that they learned from what you may have wished you had done differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I always want people to understand with that story too is I actually don't think any of the doctors were like bad doctors or had or not everybody, the doctors, the nurses, the techs and whatever. Like I don't think any of them had bad intentions. I don't think that they were trying to be coercive or anything like that. I actually think they were just going through the motions.
Mhm.
I think that they just have kind of gotten used to like this is hospital policy, this is just what we do, this is our
Yeah, they're
standard
they're
of
doing the
care.
job that
And
they're trained for.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's, I think that's important to understand. It's like it's not, I'm not like against all hospital providers. I'm very thankful that they're there. And like if I ever needed one, I would be very grateful to have the option to go to one in future births. But if you don't go in understanding like there is a standard routine of care that you will be defaulted to if you don't learn and kind of speak up about your preferences. Um, that's the key piece that I was missing. It's like
Mhm.
my options weren't guaranteed to be presented to me in full. Um, that I was responsible really for learning about what I wanted and communicating it.
Yeah.
They should be responsible for it, but at the end of the day, I can't control that piece. I can only control like taking responsibility for my own information.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was the hardest part. Thankfully, I did have him vaginally. Um, I did tear, which I'm not surprised about from my whole pushing experience.
Mhm.
Um, Tearing was kind of weird too. Nobody told me that I tore, but I happened to like look down and see him, the doctor, stitching me up at
Mhm.
some point, and it kind of felt like a fever dream. And I just kept thinking somebody would bring it up, and then they never did. So it was like hours later, I was in recovery, and the postpartum like recovery nurse had got me all set up. She did the fundal massage, which was awful. It's like this thing where they press on your belly, if anybody is listening who doesn't know what that is.
That kind of
Um,
gets your uterus back into the
yeah.
size and shape that it's
They
supposed
they do it to like check and make sure that it's shrinking down,
to.
which
Right.
anyway, look into that.
Yeah.
But she had done all of that stuff and given us our basic, like, here's how you order food and all that stuff. And she's like, all right, let me know if you need anything. And she's leaving. And I was like, wait, did I tear? Like, do I have stitches? She's like, oh, let me check. She opens her clipboard and she's like, oh, yeah, it says here you have a 2nd-degree laceration. I was like, so what do I do? Like, can I go to the bathroom? Like, do I need to know anything? How do I like clean it? What do I need to know? And she's like, so then she told me everything. But I was like, wow, I might have not even wanted stitches. Like at that point I probably just would have gotten them because I didn't even know you could decline surgery.
Sure. But I mean,
there was
it's just
no
another,
conversation about it. Yeah.
right.
And that was really rough too, because that's one of the things I was really scared about was tearing. And then to have it happen and like nobody talked to me about it and to be really unsure of how to recover. And yeah, it was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even like know where to go from there because I could talk about pelvic floor physical therapy from the tearing. I could talk about postpartum depression.
Oh my
Like,
goodness.
there's so many things. But suffice it to say, after that experience, I feel like it could have gone one of two ways. I could have had all of that happen and then been like, I'm never giving birth again. Like, that was terrible. I don't ever want to do that. For
And I don't
whatever
think anybody would have
reason,
faulted you for that decision, because
yeah.
I know people who have had traumatic first births and they said, nope,
Yep,
one and
one and
done. No
done.
more.
Yeah, which yeah, it's fair.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, I took it and ran the other way. I was like, I am going to have a better experience than that. Like I was like, I just can't believe that that's how it's supposed to be. Um, Otherwise, we just wouldn't all be here. Like there's no way that humanity could have survived this long
It's true
if
though.
everybody's births were like that. Like I was like, no. And just right away started learning everything I could. Um, I got pregnant again around 10 months postpartum, I think. And almost immediately we started looking at home birth midwives. My husband was really on board because, he walked with me through that whole recovery, physical and emotional recovery from that first birth. So he's like, yep, we're doing a home birth. And I was just so determined. Like I was soaking in as much as I could. We did a home birth prep class, so like a birth class that was specifically geared toward preparing for home birth. So it was a lot of coping mechanisms, things like that. That was very, very helpful and also really hard emotionally. Like I was surprised that day. I was just tearing up over and over again because I just kept thinking like, how easy would it have been for me to use some of this stuff and I just didn't know about it. Like there were so many things I'm like, man, that's such a simple thing to know, but nobody told me. So it was like a big processing day for us.
I can only
Um,
imagine. Yeah.
yeah, there's just so much. Yeah. And yeah, we had my daughter at home, my second child, and it was still a hard birth, but in a totally different way. Like it was hard in an empowering way, if that makes
Yes.
sense.
I totally, my first was 23 hours of labor, like
Wow.
hard work. But it was the same where I was like literally, and I tore with my first, even at home. It does happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I tore with my two home births too. I've had a
Yeah,
tear
but
every time.
but
So
I gotta say, like, it was the weirdest thing, and my husband thinks I'm a crazy person for this, but it was 5 minutes after I delivered my first son, and I'm still on the living room floor, and having torn and everything, and the end of it was just a whole rush of like,
mhm.
and my husband, this poor man, who's like, is my wife going to survive? Like, he's never seen me go
Oh,
through anything like this, right? So it's hard. It's guys out there. If there's any husbands watching this, I feel for you. You got this. But I remember looking up, like, the midwife put my baby on my belly and he did the little crawl that they do, which is just amazing. And he
yeah.
latched on immediately. And I looked up at my husband, who was sitting, like, I was like in between his legs, like holding on like this. And I looked up at him and I was like, I could totally do this again. And he's like, I don't think
Oh,
I could.
that's amazing. But yeah, I mean, it is like the most thrilling, empowering experience. And yeah, I felt the same way. Like
Mhm.
after both of my home births, just almost immediately, just like, wow, I can't believe I did it. Like we're really here.
Yeah. And
And
you were
and
talking about oxytocin. The thing that happens after a natural birth inside your body, like the chemical, hormonal dance that occurs inside once you have your baby on you, and then after they latch, your body does this whole thing where it's just like, it's like I've never done drugs. I don't know
Uh-huh.
what it's like to be high, but I imagine it's something like that.
I've heard it compared to ecstasy, like
Could
apparently
be. Yeah, I would believe
quantifiably.
it.
Yeah.
Where it's like this, like, I don't even like there's no words, just like I don't know what the words
Yeah.
are. It's so strong
It's
though,
the
and
best feeling.
it's like earthy and
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't have words for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can try if you want, but it's just this incredible, powerful,
Hmm.
like maternal.
Yeah.
I don't know. There
After
are
my second, like after my second baby was born at home, I felt like I could do anything. Like I was like, what can I not do? Like,
yeah
give me a challenge because I can do it.
yeah.
And that is so night and day from how I felt going into my first birth and coming out of my first birth. Like, I mean, coming out of my first birth, I basically felt like I couldn't trust my body. I couldn't trust myself. I had done everything wrong. It was so painful. And then that experience just trickled into feeding and sleeping and everything. So then contrasting that with after the second one was born, and I was like, I got this. Like I'm a just a boss mom lady. Like I've got it. I can take care of these kids. I know what's best for them. I mean, really, I really feel like how your birth goes has a bigger influence on how you feel like entering parenthood
I
than
would
maybe
agree
we
with
give
that.
enough credit to.
I
Um,
would agree with that.
I like if you think about like if you go through your birth experience and you have like all this self-doubt or like you feel like a failure or whatever, I don't know, I feel like that totally bleeds into how you feel about your first days as a parent. So
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, it was the best feeling ever. I still pushed for a long time. I still pushed for about 2 hours. She had a nuchal hand, so her hand was
Hey,
born
so did
with
my
me.
second. Yep.
Yep. um and then I just had so much doubt. Like I didn't think I could do it until it was done, you know, which it probably amplified that feeling afterward of like I could do anything.
Yeah.
But leading up to it, I was confident in birth. Like I had a lot more confidence that just natural physiological birth, the way that it's designed, works. So I had
Mhm.
that confidence, but I didn't have the peace in myself of like I will be able to do this. I will be able to
Right.
push my baby out. And I was so scared of tearing again. So I think the actual pushing was just, I was like, I really cannot do this. But actually, I tore again. I'm pretty sure I tore in exactly the same spot as the first time. And the recovery was totally different and way better. So yeah, maybe that's from the drugs the first time, like made it rough. Maybe I prioritized resting more second go around. Um, but the second time it really wasn't even a big deal. The first tear I was in physical therapy for like months.
Wow.
uh yeah, it was really bad.
It's incredible. Like it's wild to me. You know, like you were mentioning, like there's certain things that are kind of consistent about birth. You know, you have like effacement, you have dilation, you have, you know, different stages of labor, and like everybody goes through the stages, and
Hmm.
certain things always happen in a birth. You know, like at some point the water is going to break, during, before, after, somewhere in there, like everything is going to happen. But how different one experience is to the next, even with one mama. Like you're mentioning,
Hmm.
you know, you have three different births, and you're the same person, you've got the same body, the same anatomy, but the things that preparation, education, confidence and belief in self, I think that there's a lot to say about the team that you have around you. You know,
Hmm.
if you have people around you who are entering doubt into your world, that can have a negative effect. If you have people that are supportive and increasing your confidence, that's a big, you know, factor in your own. You know, we all want to say that we're not affected by other people, but
Mm.
if your husband's not on board, you got some work to do. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
there's so many factors that can change your story.
Mm-hmm.
even if your first was traumatic and awful and
Mm-hmm.
a nightmare, um, there's so much you can do, and you're living proof of that. Which we have another 15 minutes or so. I would like you to share, if you would, what did you do
Mm-hmm.
to prepare yourself? Like we know the outcome, like obviously you had a very positive outcome after deciding to go the home birth route. But what did you do, like aside from not being in a hospital? What did you personally do to make yourself ready and to make it a better outcome?
For my home birth. So the first thing, um, a lot of my early research was really about trying to understand what happened to me the first
Mhm.
time. So a lot of it was just trying to process, like, why did I get the epidural, and then what did that lead to? And again, like, I don't necessarily, I regret getting the epidural from the sense that of like it probably led to those other interventions. Um, but like in the moment, I know that it was a choice that I made, and I did feel a lot of relief as soon as I got it. So there's that. But really digging into, like, okay, epidurals aren't risk free. Like, they do have known risks and known side effects. So that was a big starting point of just like, wow, actually, there there's not like a hard and fast, like, this is what happens when you get an epidural and there's no side effects and whatever. So that kind of led into, like, all right, maybe there's actually a lot of reasons to go unmedicated. And I already knew I wanted to give birth out of the hospital, but that was kind of the big hurdle I had to jump, was like, I couldn't handle the pain. I couldn't
Right.
handle the pain the first time. That was how I viewed it. I know now that it's not so much about if you have an innate ability to handle it or not handle it. It's just about like having the coping tools and the support and the environment. But I think that language is, especially with first time moms, like, you hear that a lot. Like, I just don't know if I could handle it or not. So that's
Or
the
my pain tolerance is very low.
Yes, I have a low pain tolerance. And I do. I have a low pain tolerance. Like, I am a huge baby. Um, so I hope that gives someone hope too, that, like, if you're looking for an example of somebody with a really low pain tolerance who was still able to have an unmedicated birth and enjoy their experience, it's me. Like, I cry at the dentist just from a cleaning. Like, I'm not a high pain tolerance person. But so that was a huge thing, was I was like, if I'm gonna give birth at home, I'm gonna have to not have an epidural and be okay with it. Um, so it was a lot of that. It was a lot of, like, convincing myself that going without the epidural was a good choice,
Mhm.
and then learning how to do it. So yeah, just a lot of, like, the practical strategies. The home birth prep class was seriously one of the best things I ever did.
Was that
Uh,
like an in-person thing?
it was an in-person class. It was taught by a team of 2 doulas,
Okay.
which was probably also my first exposure to a doula at all.
Yeah.
Um, but they were great. Uh, they answered so many questions too. Like, I was still nursing my first baby when I got pregnant again. So, and I had an OB tell me, she said, well, you need to get serious about weaning now that you're pregnant again, because you're not going to have any colostrum for your new baby. Complete BS. Like, anyone who is listening, I just want you to forget you ever heard that, because it was just garbage. But I was nervous about it for about 2 minutes. But I talked to these doulas about it. One of them was an IBCLC. She's like, no. Like,
IBCLC, just for anybody who doesn't know, is a lactation consultant. So somebody who specializes in helping mamas
yes.
who need help with breastfeeding. For some, it comes very naturally. Some people need help with various positions and troubleshooting and stuff like that. So there are people who are specifically trained. If you're having trouble out there breastfeeding, find yourself somebody who is a lactation consultant. They're magical and amazing.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so a certified breastfeeding expert told me that what this OB said was just nonsense. So that gave me a lot of confidence there too, and it all plays in together. Like, there's confidence with breastfeeding, like, bleeds into confidence with birthing and confidence in your body in general. So all of that helped a lot. But yeah, that the class was so helpful, and my husband obviously was there with me, and we just learned so much. It was like we went in with a real strategy. Um, and then I watched like a billion birth videos, like so many. And I got, like, I even made myself, it's funny because now this doesn't bother me at all, obviously. At the time, I had to kind of like make myself look at the ones that were more explicit,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, I
Um,
completely understand. I did the same thing.
but I was thinking, like, okay, there was so much that felt like mysterious to me in the first time. Like, I really just had to rely on other people to know whatever was happening and guide me through it. So going into the second one, I was like, I want to understand what is happening in my body. Like, I want to know actually the ins and outs. I want to understand the stages of labor, and I want to understand how does a vagina fit a baby out of it? Like, how is that possible?
Right.
And once you've watched it, a couple hundred times, like I did, it's so much more normal. Like, it doesn't seem so impossible and scary and ridiculous. Whereas, like, going into the first time, I was like, I couldn't even wrap my brain around it. Like, I was like, that is just not a possibility.
Well, yeah, it's like the ongoing thing is like, oh, it's like fitting a watermelon through a hole the size of a lime or whatever, right? And you're like, and that's the imagery that you get. I don't know where I even heard that, but I know I've heard it in
Yeah.
movies or people or whatever.
I've
And
heard squeezing a lemon out of your nostril.
okay, yeah, okay. No, a
It's
nostril does
not
not
like
have
that.
the same anatomy. It is not designed to squeeze something the size of a lemon out of it.
Right.
Your body is actually designed to expel a fully grown child.
Mm-hmm.
like baby ready to be born is allowed. Anyway, it's
Mm-hmm.
not the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing that I really honed in on was like all of the most common complications. And which sounds probably like a negative thing to be focusing on and preparing for, but I wanted to feel very confident going in that, like, okay, I knew 99% of the time, or even more, birth just works. It actually has a better record of working well in home births. So I knew that, but I was like, okay, if something were to go wrong, most likely it's going to be one of these like handful of things, and the midwife is equipped to deal with those emergencies. Like, most of them can be dealt with in a very short time at home, and you just proceed with the birth, and it's not a big deal. So that gave me a lot of confidence too. And we had like our backup birth plan. But I don't even think I packed a hospital bag, because I also was like, I was not willing to entertain the possibility of going to the hospital again. Not saying that that was wise,
Nope,
or that
I
I would
understand.
recommend that.
I did the same thing. I can completely relate.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think, like, mentally, I did not want to know that I had a hospital bag packed and ready to go, because I was like, I just don't want to go to the hospital. But yeah, but I just knew I could do it, like, in theory. And I knew that even if something goes wrong, probably it will be fine. And, like, worst case scenario, maybe we'll transfer to the hospital. And even then, most of the time, it all works out.
Right.
And, like, my midwife told me, most of the time when home births transfer, it's actually not for an emergency. It's just because, like, if the person has been laboring for
It's exhaustion.
like a
Yeah.
billion hours, they're just ready to kind of take a break and get an epidural. And then
Or
usually
if
they still go on to have a great positive birth experience.
right.
So.
If you listen to the first podcast episode with my husband, he called it sleepy mommy, which I was like, that's a little underplaying the feeling, but yes.
Maternal exhaustion.
Maternal exhaustion, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. An hour flew by, as it always seems to
I
do.
know.
I definitely want to have you back on. We'll pick another more niche topic, and we'll do a deep dive into something or other. Before we leave, do you want to, promote your practice, tell people what area you serve, what your services are, where they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm in Ball Ground, Georgia. So I serve really anything kind of right north of Atlanta. I just don't want to go through Atlanta to get to you. But I'm a doula, so I do in-person birth support. I do have an online course that we'll be releasing soon that's specifically geared toward preparing for unmedicated birth. It's a faith-based course, so it's geared toward Christian moms. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely give me a follow. And yeah, I'm excited to talk again soon.
Awesome. Can people find you on social media somewhere?
Yes. Instagram at rise.birth is the best place.
Perfect. When you do have that course available, let me know. I'd be happy to shout it out on my socials as well.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody listening. We will see you in the next episode.